And welcome to the Inside Football podcast. My name is Andy Taylor, and I'm joined, as always, by Stuart and Isaac as we bring you BUCS breakdown for week 10 of the BUCS season. As we're into 2026, we're a few weeks now from Touchdown Tuesday, copyright, to obviously the finals that are going to come to us this year, and we're back with you again to go over the results that happened in week 9 at last weekend, and then a look ahead towards the week 10 slate, which is huge. 25 games in total. Good luck if you're a referee or a coach having to stand in for the referees, because I'm sure they're stretched up and down the country. And also we'll have a little look at what we think, say collectively we, to protect myself, but what I thought it meant for the playoffs following this week's results. And I have had people in my DMs and in my texts telling me how wrong I am, so I'll try and justify myself at the same time. Before we get into the results, do we want to hit the news that came down today? Should we do that first, or do you want to do that at the end? Bit of retainer, a bit of retention.
Nah, let's get it out of the way, shall we?
Get it out of the way. So which one's bigger, Isaac? The GB news or the Scunthorpe Alpha news? Which one?
Definitely the Scunthorpe Alpha's news.
It's really sad, isn't it? It's huge, and obviously it's not BUCS related, but it's obviously huge for the world of British American football and Scunthorpe Alphas, who deserved the promotion last year. Okay, they lost in the final, but they got there, and that was the preeminent position that they needed to get into Premiership football. And they announced today that on Wednesday, the 28th of January, at point of recording, just in case we're not time-stamped, that they will not be participating in the Premiership North, which is a bit of a theme at the moment, isn't it, for the Premiership North? But very, very sad news, if anything. Isaac, do you want to have first dibs at this?
Yeah, it's kind of confusing, it, because I think for the last few years you've seen the recruitment that Scunthorpe has been able to do. You know, they've recruited good, good numbers coming out of universities, from other teams, giving people a new home from what their old teams would have been. And then this year, you see the departure of their head coach. Coach, is it Grosvenor who left after the season finished, and there's a man who's kind of built Scunthorpe from the ground up in the last few years, from Div 2 and taking them on the rise up to the Prem, and for him to leave, that must have been hard for him, but must be harder now to see him that this season they're not going to compete. Well, right now they're not going to compete at all. We don't know, obviously, what could happen and what, but right now they haven't got a team that is fit to play games in the Prem.
We can only speculate what's going to happen at the moment, can't we? Because we haven't had any official word on alignments yet, because this has come after the last iteration that we received, right? Scunthorpe were well and truly in the Prem North, the last iteration that I saw, and this is obviously going to have been a massive headache for Joe Walker and the competition committee, that they've had to probably get together and scramble to try and pull together some schedules, which are well overdue now. We would normally have had them by now, wouldn't we? We are waiting, obviously, for that as fans, but also in our roles, trying to provide information and get ready for a season ahead. But also, what does this mean for the rest of the league, Stuart? What's your read on this? My initial read on this is that if they exist, which is obviously a big question mark, because that is not in the statements that Scunthorpe released. It's just that they're working on it. They're working with BAFA. So it's after the deadline. It's going to be treated severely, isn't it? Are they going to be sent to associate? We don't know. Are they going to be sent down one division? We don't know, right? But we also don't know whether they're going to exist. So this feels like a big deal for the league as well, going into the summer.
Yeah, and I think you've kind of covered the two main options there. Obviously, we had this 12 months ago when Edinburgh.
Yeah.
No, it was Edinburgh, wasn't it? It was. For some reason, that was completely random. I had Aberdeen in my head, but that's because we've been talking about Aberdeen this and Aberdeen that, haven't we? So, when Edinburgh sort of bowed out this time last year, it was okay. Well, are they going to compete at Tier 2, Division 2? Are they going to go back to associate? In the end, we don't think they've done either of those. They just seem to have dissolved,
vanished.
as it were.
Yep.
Yeah. So is that going to be the same for Scunthorpe? And in which case, it's a huge shame, because they had a meteoric rise. They had a really good game day. They even started to live stream their games. So it seems to be that something has been pulled, or several things have been pulled from the club that is going to make, or has made, 2026 impossible for them to compete at Prem level. It's just now whether they can salvage the ashes and go in at Division 2, and in which case it potentially gives the management committee and competitions committee even more of a headache, because they have to do the Division 2 schedules all over again, which they probably won't. I would think that they would just go back to associate, or do what Edinburgh have done and just sort of dissolve going forward, which will be a huge shame for the Scunthorpe brand. But I'm sure there's a few teams around that area that are already going, we'll have you, we'll have you, we'll have you. And we've seen the Yorkshire Rounds.
Yeah,
seen the Yorkshire Rounds this afternoon post 1 or 2 recruitment posts. So, growth by shrinkage first. We've said a couple of times. Is this going to be the way that we go over the next few years to get a decent level of football and a decent product on the field, perhaps?
But it's happened numerous times now, not necessarily to this degree, where obviously we had Edinburgh dissolved late on, Scunthorpe have now gone late on. But before that, we had, I'm trying to think back to my day when I was involved, there was Leicester who came up and didn't do so well. Sandwell, who you know well, obviously, Stuart, came up and didn't do so well. And I'm not meaning in the sense of they didn't do well because they didn't deserve to be there. I mean, they got there and then things just on the background just went wrong. It's almost like the challenge of that, or the perception of that challenge. Either it's timing, and so they get there, they get there at their peak where they've got experience and athleticism, and maybe they've got a team that's at their peak at the time in which they get there, and then they all retire, which by the sounds of it is part of the issue that Scunthorpe have had, where a lot of their main players will have retired on the back of that last season. But it's also that sort of like having that resiliency and planning in place, isn't it? And having that ability to bring in the off chance that a Warwick grows and it does disappear, and so on. But it's a worrying sign, and something that BAFA are going to have to take real serious, isn't it? Yeah, there you go. Coach Dave Gibbs is in there with a comment there saying, is this just another sign that there are too many teams to support the current wider infrastructure of Britball? And I think that's kind of what we've been saying for the last year to 18 months, isn't it? And it's always been the sort of the reading between the lines of the messaging coming out of BAFA at times, that we need to shrink to grow. Whether we agree with that or not is a different matter, though. But sad. But Isaac, you know better than certainly us two on the map that they've got Humber nearby, they've got Lincolnshire nearby,
Wakefield,
South Yorkshire, Wakefield,
Sheffield, Yorkshire. Yeah, exactly. There's enough teams nearby, and I think that kind of area now is going to thrive from this in a way. Yeah, it's sad that Scunthorpe are going to go, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I don't think that they can. I don't think it'd be fair if they were to be put into Div 1 or Div 2. If I'm being honest, if you guys aren't going to play into your division that you've worked so hard to get to, and then all of a sudden you're just going to go, actually, we don't want that. We don't want to be there. We're going to go back to the level where we know we can compete. That is
on January 28th.
Exactly. Yeah. If you said it the day after, when they got beaten by Merseyside, and said, "Look, guys," and it was much like SGS, where SGS kind of just said, "Look, we're not ready to play in the Prem National. We're not gonna play the play down game. We're gonna just wait and see where we get to and play where we are." I think that would have been a lot better, and it maybe would have given a chance for another team, where you look at potentially a Yorkshire or a Glasgow, who they beat in the semi-final, to be up in the Prem in the Prem North. But definitely now it just seems as if the only way that Scunthorpe can be treated is by being made an associate level. I think that there is rumours around that they could be mergers with another team, and in that kind of, again, it gets into murky territory where you look at some of the teams that want to merge with, you're going to have some really, really talented athletes, Prem level athletes, potentially in Div 2. In some cases, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and interesting to see what BAFA kind of does with it, because it's going to speak a lot about BAFA's integrity with the way that they treat Scunthorpe.
It's not a precedent they're going to want to set, is it? They're going to want to make sure they try and stamp this out as much as possible. Then they're going to have to put processes in place to make sure how, because once is a one-off, two is a theme, right, or at least start of a theme, and I think this is the worrying thing that's coming out of this for the competition committee. I
think with the Edinburgh situation last year, that kind of seemed completely different to this in a way, doesn't it? It seems like they were never ready. They have teams nearby. Obviously I don't know Scotland, but Edinburgh. They have East Kilbride, Glasgow, and Edinburgh. That three of the biggest cities. I'm going to guess that they're all close to each other, or they're not millions of miles apart from each other. With Edinburgh, you can kind of understand it more, because if I'm right in thinking, did their women's team also end at the same time, or has their women's team stopped? They've turned into something else now, and it seems much like that. Where with Edinburgh, that was almost destined to happen. Where with this, they were still recruiting players and had a lot of players lined up from your different universities. They've tapped into York St John, into Hull, into Lincoln. They've had a player who now plays at UWE, who they had on their roster last year. They've got a lot of talent, but on the other side, it seems like that either they see that the Prem lights are too bright. Is that it? It's going to be, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because the release never really said much.
No, it didn't. And I did reach out certainly a few days ago, asking them, are the rumours true? And I don't want to speculate, publicly, but I did ask them. They said that there have been a number of rumours. Not all of them are true, but that was telling in itself that some of them are. And then obviously the statement came out today, and I reached out and said, is there anything more that you can tell me? And at this point they can't. I'm assuming it's Chris, but Chris15BU commented saying it's almost like teams directly recruiting players from other teams doesn't create a sustainable model within BritBull. And I think we all agree that probably isn't. But Scunthorpe also, and partly agree with your comment, but also they just started a youth academy, and they just started those sort of models that you would attribute to a sustainable model. So they were on the up, and then it's just imploded, which is sad.
Didn't their U19s team or U16 team pull out of the season before it started last year as well? If memory serves me right, or they played one tournament, and
potentially. And
I remember something. I can't remember. I don't think it was the U19s. I think it was maybe the U16s. But again, that did happen last year with them. And but yeah, I think it's
got a better memory than me.
Players. They are recruiting other teams from other teams, other players from other teams. Sorry, but I think most people will do that now. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of, even playing at Wakefield, the amount of players who've played for, the Rams or the Giants who then come to us. And it's kind of the same for Scunthorpe Alphas when, especially in the case of Scunthorpe Alphas, the grass did look greener for that team, didn't it?
Definitely.
If you're playing for a Wakefield Raiders or you're playing for a Humberside, all of a sudden you've gone, oh, they're on the rise. They're recruiting people. They want me. I'm going to go over there and play. Especially with the amount of investment that Scunthorpe had, it's you can understand why other people want to go to that team.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. NJ Coates on Instagram also said, unfortunately, it's trend teams come in, dominate, then fold. Reminds me of the likes of Bury Saints and Coventry Jets, to name a few. Which is true, and it's just sad. And it's something that is really, really something important to talk about, because it's something to really highlight, and at least go warning signs. All those teams who haven't got a sustainability model don't become this next team, and there is obviously, this might be a side effect of previous BAFA policies of letting everybody into the league who can pass the sniff test of associate processes, rather than saying, hold on, no, you're too close to them and too close to them, and so on. Certainly some teams near me fall under that. It used to fall under that sort of model as well, who aren't here anymore. So I think, this might be a side effect of that. Nathan also commented saying, what's the point of teams dominating Division 2 just to fold as soon as they get to the Premiership? And I suppose it's kind of what we talked about, isn't it? Where, it's a worrying trend, and hopefully one that we see the last of, and hopefully Scunthorpe are the last of it, but I fear. Anyway, we also had GB news, didn't we? So great, the GB BAFA will be fuming that GB was probably overshadowed by the Scunthorpe news, I would say anyway. But go and check out our socials. We've just posted out and on our website an article that Stuart wrote together to get the what's the word? What I'm looking for? They announced. That's the word. Announced the fixtures. Announced the fixtures of GB coming for both the performance team and the development team, both happening at the same time. Similar sort of weekends, although it might not be specifically the same, but they're happening end of October this year, October next year, depending on how results go. But go and have a look at that. We won't go into too much detail about it because I know there will be some more detail coming from Aaron and company sooner rather than later. But anything from you guys around that? Happy to see it, yay! Because there wasn't any this year.
I think it's great to get them in the diary, and great to sort of get them out there. It's also great to have two teams, both the performance and the development. It's great to see that if you miss that 45-player roster for the performance team, there's still an opportunity for you to represent your country. And even at development level, it's still great to pull on the white, the blue, the red, whatever of GB, and go out and represent your country. As you say, everything is on the website. I've just put it on stories and on posts as well. We play the performance team play at level 1, the development team play at level 2, and there's only 3 teams that currently play at level 2. So GB will be against Georgia and Spain, who are both also looking to compete. Spain also have a performance team and a development team, if I'm correct with that. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how these programs develop over the next few years, and how players move between the teams and develop from the sort of, I was going to call it the under-19 program, but from the actual pathway of players that we get going forward over the next few years. Really looking forward to it.
Can't wait. I can't wait to see how this starts to unfold. We're hoping to get all the head coaches on the podcast at some point, or at least interviewed, so we can provide you that information. We've already reached out to all of them, apart from Coach Lillis, which we haven't reached out to yet. I've just realised, so we'll have to. I think he was announced after we started reaching out to people, actually. So we'll have to reach out to him and get his thoughts. Certainly, with this announcement of the development team also having a schedule, which is just imagine going from having 1 or 2 fixtures every couple of years to now guaranteed 4 at least this year, which is just awesome, isn't it? So really exciting to see. But we'll dive into that a bit more. We're 15 minutes in and we haven't talked about BUCS at all, so let's move on quickly and get straight into week 9. And I suppose we'll have to be a bit concise with most of this, so we don't go too long. So let's start with the Prem. We didn't have any Prem National this week, just with the North and South. Isaac, take us through it first.
Yeah, so quite an unsurprising win really for the Warwick Wolves, 23-14 over the Leeds Griffins. Leeds, again, look like they can score some points, but I think it's all but written for them in it that they could be destined for Tier 1 at this rate, which isn't great to see because after the incredible work they did last year, a new head coach, new coordinators, and it just looks like nothing's been able to click, and maybe it's starting to click too late for them. And in the other game in the North, the Newcastle derby, Northumbria coming out on top 26-20 against the Raiders. Northumbria have been kind of that team where they can beat a few teams and then they'll lose, and then it's 50-50 most of the time. There's no real consistency with them, but I think their first year back in the Prem, sitting just above 500 at the minute. I think they'll take that with Rayleigh. I think that's quite good for them. And Newcastle, it's kind of they've improved from last year. Got a couple of wins, but now they hold Leeds' fate in their hand, really, and I think they'll play again in a couple of weeks. So it's definitely going to be an interesting end to the season, the Prem North on both ends, especially with today's result, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit.
Well, Leeds have got they've got 3 games to save their skin in the Prem. They've got to win 2 of them. 1 of them against Newcastle. All 3 of them are away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's not a good look to the end of the year for if you're a Leeds Griffins fan, is it at all? So they're going to hope that they can.
I think it also means that the ground that the University of Leeds play at, and also Leeds Beckett, means that it hasn't seen a win now, since last February.
Yeah.
So it's not a great place to be right now at West Park, is it? If you're going there as a home fan.
Yeah, true. Stuart, what stood out to you across the Prem then?
The amount of points that the Demons put on the Burners, I think, is probably the biggest eye opener for me. Albeit through trickeration, more so than anything else. Speaking to someone from the Burners about how they conceded the points, apparently there was a double reverse. There was a couple of other plays that kind of added points on, but at that you kind of flip it and think, well, actually that's good coaching, because if you can see that they're going to concede, then why not try a thing or two? You've got really nothing to lose as a Demon, have you, really? Let's face it, at the bottom of the Prem South, so why not try something different? And you also look at it from a Burners point of view, thinking, they're pretty much sorted atop that division. They've probably got a big squad. Let's start getting rookies or guys who are not getting many reps from the first team in the previous games, some reps in these games, so that you go back to your starters and back to your first string in the playoffs. So, yeah, initially I think it was an eye-opener, going, wow, Exeter got 22 points. But, there's more to that game than meets the eye. And then Cardiff taking care of Portsmouth 37-12. I think that is exactly as it is, just sort of taking care of business, fun day out with the boys in Cardiff, as they say on social media several times. So, yeah, two good results for the 2 winning teams in the Prem South.
Yeah, 100%. That means that Cardiff will not finish any further than 3rd as well. So the bottom 2 will be either Portsmouth or Exeter. The implications of these results, we'll get into the playoffs, but in terms of divisions, it meant that Warwick qualify for the NTU and Warwick qualify for the playoffs, and SGS qualify for the playoffs in absentia. So congratulations to them. We'll talk about seedings in a second. Let's have a little look at Tier 1. Plenty went on across Tier 1. I can see a lot of zeros. So there was a lot of one-sided affairs across this entire tier, Stuart. Where do you want to go with picking out a couple of these results?
I was going to go with exactly that, the fact that there is a lot of zeros. KCL squeaked past Kingston. That result was a bit of a mud bath, having seen photographs and videos from that game. To get 9 points on the board, it was impressive. They got those very early on in the game as well, so before it turned into a mud bath. I don't know if you watched one of the playoff games. It was the Denver one, wasn't it, that turned from like perfect conditions to absolutely snowy field in the space of a quarter. I have a feeling that not quite to the same effect, but in Kingston, Tolworth Court, the pitch went from green to brown within the first quarter. The touchdown and then the safety that KCL managed to get were invaluable. Bournemouth again taking care of business, 41-0 over Plymouth Blitz, and then I'm sure Isaac's going to cover one game certainly in the north, and then potentially go north of the border. So I'll let him chat about those.
Yeah, I mean, is that Nottingham Green, and their challengers in Sheffield Hallam, they travelled up the road and handled business, really. 29-0 victory over the Warriors, and it's kind of that, isn't it? They're just from people who were there watching it and from playing there, I think it was quite a physical game. It was it always is between them two teams, but I think that Nottingham just have too much quality, really. This happened exactly the same at the David Ross Village, pretty much, where Green were just far too strong for them. And I think it's them pretty much stand alone at that in their Midlands and Yorkshire division anyways. And then we've got a little bit like Westwood. See, I'm learning geography. And the Lancashire Rams carry on their great run, not conceding a point all season. I just fear for them when they do come up against a Nottingham Green or they do come up against an Edinburgh Napier, against the side who has proven they can score, or even a Stirling for that matter. It's going to be tough for them. I think that not playing teams that will challenge them greatly. They've had close games. You look at Manchester's doing well. I mean, you have been okay, but the rest of that division, Edge Hill, you can see why they're not conceding points. It's still a great effort from their coaches and from the players, but definitely that I do kind of fear for them that they'll think it's far too easy when they get into playoff football, and they've got to play some of the best teams that we believe are Prem level, and are just not there because of in the reshuffle they weren't favoured. And like you say, above the north of the border, Edinburgh Napier Knights, they have clinched the Scottish. Is that right? They are champions. Yep. Congratulations to them. 54-0 victors over Glasgow, as well as Stirling beating Edinburgh 42-0. It's going to be interesting to see, like it always is with the Scottish teams when they have to come south and face some of the English teams, just how good these lot can be. But definitely that Scottish division has proven a lot of points. So you just got to think what the scorelines would be if Aberdeen did play this year, really, haven't you?
Yeah. And let us know in the comments if you think that who's going to go further out of these three teams, right? Nottingham Green, Lancashire Rams, or Edinburgh Napier Knights, because they're the class of this tier north. I'll be shocked if it's not two of those three in the final, and all three of them didn't concede a point this week, which is just a testament to their dominance. Who will make it to the Prem? Simon Stockwell's asking, is it Nottingham Green to the Prem North? Which I think is tongue in cheek, to replace the Scunthorpe Alphas potentially. But no, I think I don't think I'd necessarily agree with your take on Lancashire, but that's understandable because Manchester Tyrants and MMU Eagles, that's the litmus test that we have with Lancashire, right? But it's hard not to concede a point. That's really hard to do, whoever it is. And I think certainly in a university setup, I think that they're going to go a real long way to in these playoffs, and they'll be. I still say there's three Premiership teams in this tier one, and it's those three. All three of them would put up a fight in the Prem. I'm sure of it. What does it mean? So we know that Lancashire and Manchester have qualified for the playoffs. We talked about Edinburgh Napier champs, Nottingham Green champs as well. So they've tied up that division as well through the head-to-head that they have against Sheffield Hallam. So even if Sheffield Hallam won out and Nottingham Green lost out, Sheffield Hallam would still finish below them because of head-to-head. So it is a three-way horse for the number one seed between those three. And at the moment, there are 4 points per game in it. So there's plenty for Lancashire to concede in the last two games for the other two to stand a chance, really. Plenty for them to work on anyway. In terms of the South, nothing really decided yet. I tried to do the maths on the Southeast to see if Kent and King's College could be put in, but there was far too many permutations to try and work out on a Sunday night. You could probably argue that they're in the playoffs because Bath can't catch them in Birmingham can't catch them in number of points and all this sort of stuff. But I lost the will to live when trying to work it out, so we'll move on from that. And we'll say until it's dead obvious for Andy to work it out, they're not in the Prem. Not in the playoffs yet.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard you say, I'm going to give up trying to work something out. That's not like you.
It was after a while. Trust me, I gave up after a while. Tommy, let me know in the comments whether I should have put King's College and Kent in the playoffs or not. let's have a little look then in Tier 2. So Isaac, will give you first dibs here. Again, some funky results up and down this tier.
Yeah, you look at, I'm going to look at the Midlands, AIU, who before the game against De Montfort looked like they were going to take the Midlands by storm, and since then they've got the loss against De Montfort, which was kind of unexpected, and now the loss against Coventry, which again, Coventry are sitting, they're a very 50-50 team. I think before this they were coming into it with quite like a weird record. You thought they'd bounce back straight to Tier 1, and they haven't done that. But then you look at Cambridge as well, and tell you, them bagpipes must be working a treat. 46-0 winners over Lincoln Colonials. Lincoln again, they were tipped at the start of the season to be up there with Coventry, and they haven't won a game yet all season. It's worrying signs for Lincoln. But yeah, definitely, it's definitely worrying signs for them. And then you look at the Northwest as well. Salford Storm losing 20-8 to the Staffordshire Stallions, and they've taken a massive dip from the first game. First game with a massive win, and then since then 2 losses on the bounce. And when many people are touting them to be one of the top in Tier 2 overall at the start of the season, you kind of got to think why. It's the first year. They're going to learn from this, but definitely
that's why.
Exactly. It's first year, unknown kind of thing, but definitely I think the hype was a bit too high for Salford. And
I think you've got to come in with hype, haven't you?
Yeah.
If we've just been talking about Scunthorpe Alphas and sustainability and recruiting and so on. And the one thing you've got to come with hype, because if you just rock up, it ain't going to go well. It's if you just turn up to a party and go, "Hi guys," you're going to have to come in with a bit of hype, aren't you? And I think you're right. They're just having first year, right? It would be next year that we'll be judging them by, I would have thought. So I totally agree with you there. Stuart, anything you want to pick out?
Not from the north. I am going to go south. It looks like Imperial versus Quimble games are ridiculously interesting, right? They played in week 2 and it was 7-6. They played in week 9 and it was 9-6. So, yeah, that's. It looks like that's.
Hang on. So City St George.
You're a couple of weeks ahead of yourself.
I am, Anna. Why did I say that? Cheers for correcting me, Isaac. What we'll do is we'll say games in that division are close and interesting, shall we? But yeah, Imperial squeaked past City St George. It was the same really with Surrey and Chichester, wasn't it? It's kind of like teams at the top of their divisions are kind of wanting to squeak past the teams at the bottom. I mean, yeah, granted, a win's a win, and it won't tell you in the history books what the performance was like. It will just tell you your record. So I think both Surrey and Imperial will go, yeah, okay, we'll take a win, especially Imperial because they cemented their place in the playoffs by our maths, let's put it that way. And then, yeah, Surrey and Reading are kind of pulling away at the top of the Southern 2, and hopefully they'll be able to. They've got Surrey don't play this week, it's next week. It's Solent Sussex this weekend, and then yeah, Reading and Surrey meet the weekend after, and that'll be the game to watch and say, okay, who's going to get 1 seed, who's going to get 2 seed, and see where the 3rd seed ends up based on the other results.
100%. Yeah, no, that Southeast is going to be interesting. It's a 2-horse race after a couple of these results in the last few BUCS weeks, but it's shaping up to the final game of the season. Quimble at home to Imperial. That's probably going to decide that division, which is just really good planning from Tanya and the crew, isn't it, to have that as the bookend. Well done, you. So yeah, delighted with that. But that's the only thing that had an implication on the playoffs, really, in terms of who's qualified. ARU have been pulled back into the pack. As you say, Lancaster still sitting there at the top, along with Swansea and Reading, and Imperial have just put their foot firmly in the playoffs. It'll just be about seeding for them now. So very, very interesting to see how that's implicated. Let's quickly go through if the season ended today, so what that meant for the playoffs. We can jump in at the time. We didn't have any Prem Nationals, so I'm not going to bring that up. But really, not a lot changed in the VARs this week. In fact, I'm not sure anything changed, actually, if memory serves. NTU still holding on to the top in the north with Brunel. Warwick second with SGS. And then obviously the 3rds and the 4ths go go to visit each other, don't they? So at the moment, Newcastle are travelling to London to face Brunel, and Northumbria are travelling down to Bristol to face SGS. Portsmouth likewise up to Nottingham, and Cardiff across, a little bit shorter, away to Warwick. So not a lot changed there. Can I skip over this and go straight into the tier 1? Yeah. And actually, I didn't actually mention it today, but we had a result today. I've just realised I didn't bring that up. Should probably talk about that before we get into it. This didn't really change anything, but a huge result for NTU, 42-0 against Newcastle Raiders today on a Wednesday. Isaac, big deal?
Big deal. When I had Ian Atkinson on the BUCS weekend kickoff last week, I couldn't believe it when he said that, we're playing a game on Wednesday and then Sunday, which we'll talk about in a bit, obviously. But definitely, this is big for NTU. Kind of just shows that they're not one of them teams to keep it tight all the time, like they have done in a couple of games, and that they can score at will when they need to. It's probably more worrying for Newcastle than it is impressive for NTU, because if Leeds can get a couple of wins under the belts or win out for the rest of the season, it's not a good thing for Newcastle. It'll be interesting to see like the numbers they brought and what kind of team they put out. Would it starters, are they saving themselves? Had a hurt from the weekend, that kind of thing. But definitely, Ian Atkinson is taking care of business in the Prem North.
Yeah, and Newcastle host Leeds this weekend, and if they win it, they crown themselves as division champs, and sew up that number 1 seed this week, because they won't be able to get caught by Warwick.
Newcastle.
Oh, sorry.
NTU host.
I know what I meant. Yes, NTU play Leeds this week, and if NTU win, then they will tie up the division.
We knew what you meant. You just didn't say what you meant.
I know what I meant. You're the one who has to try and work out what I mean. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to brush over that. I just simply forgot to talk about it. Let's then keep going with if the season ends today, the playoff implications. Quite difficult to see all this on screen. Might need to quickly gloss over this visually. But there wasn't a whole lot to change when it comes to tier 1. However, we had Glasgow and Stirling swapped. So Stirling are now sitting in the 6th seed, where they will be travelling to Nottingham Green, which I'm sure they're delighted about. And then Glasgow are currently sitting in the 8th seed, where they'll be travelling to Lancashire, which again, I'm sure they'll be delighted about. And that leaves Man Met just sitting outside the playoffs at the moment in the north. Not really else much to add there. Anything for the north from you guys? From the south? Want me to keep going? Go on.
I mean, that Sheffield Manchester game that looks interesting, really, isn't it? Because it's two number 2 teams, so it gives one of them a chance. Anyways, it's not one of the big 3 that we expect to be there, but also that semi-final matchup that could be between Edinburgh Napier Knights and Nottingham Green. That's going to be incredible if it happens, especially if Nottingham Green have to go on the road to Edinburgh Napier. Hypothetical at the minute, but definitely one to look out for.
Yeah, 100%. In the south, I think KCL took over Bristol in their seedings because they've got 1 extra point, because they are obviously unbeaten in their division, and also Birmingham have crept into the playoffs as well, overtaking Bath for the 8th seed. So that means that now we have a matchup between where KCL will be hosting Birmingham at this rate, and Hertfordshire will be hosting Brighton, and Bristol will be hosting Bournemouth. So I, for one, hope it doesn't finish that way, because that's a lot of interdivision matchups, isn't it? And we don't want to see the same game.
I think the right-hand side of that graphic is a heck of a lot more fluid than the left-hand. I think a lot of that left-hand side of that graphic there is not set in stone, but I think is going to go that direction. Whereas the right-hand side, I think teams are still going to steal wins, and they're going to concede fewer points in these next few games, with one eye on the playoffs, wanting to host and also wanting to gain better seeds.
Mm-hmm. You get the feeling that Sheffield Hallam are probably going to be in that 4 to 6 bracket when it's all said and done. They've obviously faced Green twice. You would have thought that would be where my money is, and then it's a case of where Glasgow and Stirling finish. and so that might be where you might get a flip in those, because they're all grouped together. Believe me, I've learned the hard way. Ones get grouped together, twos get grouped together, and threes get grouped together. So with that, that means that it just does depend on your position along the way. And so it'll be very interesting to see. And obviously only 0.8 of a difference in average points conceded between Edinburgh Napier and Nottingham Green will obviously have a big deal on their path to the final as well. So I'm sure Green will be looking to not concede anything in their last 2 games. But I'm sure Edinburgh Napier will have something to say as well. Let's have a quick look at the Conference Cup. So North, again, I don't think much changed here. I think York dropped out because by the time we released it, we hadn't updated their loss. Or sorry, they drew. Hull got a win, I think, didn't they? Yeah, they got a win against York St John, so that puts them into second. But then obviously they'll be low seed because they actually don't have a point because they didn't actually play it. So when it comes to seeding, they'll stay there. And York fell out because Staffordshire won. So Staffordshire at the moment will be facing Lancaster in their first round. And again, I pray that that's not how it finishes, because I don't want to see interdivision in the first round of the playoffs. But that's just my personal preference. Are you still hanging on for now? Are they at risk?
Yeah.
You let me down, guys.
Potentially. Let's face it.
They really let me down.
They did. So we thinking that potentially Cambridge could pop up into those top 3 and ARU drop down into those top 2, those next 2 potentially.
I mean, you're looking at the fixtures and you're looking at the fixtures, and Cambridge are going to have all the momentum because Cambridge play again this weekend. And then in the last game of the season, it's ARU versus Cambridge, but ARU don't play between now and the 22nd of February. So that's like 4 weeks or so that you've got to maintain momentum, and in a squad that is sort of looking over their shoulder and chasing that. It's
Are
tough.
Cambridge at home as well?
No, it's at ARU.
Oh, the Bagpipes might be on the road.
Yeah,
however, it is the
help the first time.
Exactly. I think they need to be like in the number 1 or 2 seed, just so the Bagpipes can continue just for another game, just to keep it going.
Very good. Sorry, Stuart.
No, it's right. I was going to say that the fixture coming up this weekend is return of Bagpipes, but we're coming on to fixtures later, so I quickly breathed in.
Nice. Awesome. Then in the south, because there wasn't that many games, there wasn't that much of a change really at all. And actually the victories that happened didn't change any of the positions. So really we've, I think maybe UE overtook Surrey because of their conceded points, average points conceded. So UE are now up to 4th instead of Surrey, who are now 5th. But I think that's because Surrey have played a little bit more, conceded a little bit more points per game than UE, and just by default. But UE have still got some games to play, so that's why I think UE Bullets are now hosting Surrey, whereas it was the other way around the other side of Christmas. But otherwise, things. But again, there's too many interdivisions in there. I don't want to see Imperial against Quimble. I don't want to see UE. UE and Surrey's not the case, is it? But let's change it all up as well. Nathan Coates asking, do ARU and Cambridge share a field? Anybody know that?
Oh my gosh, it's in Cambridge. The Bagpipes might be there.
Hit us up if you know.
I'm going to investigate this.
Can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay.
Yeah, fair dues. Let us know in the comments if you know. Awesome. Right, so still plenty more. We've got 25 games coming up this weekend. We are not going to preview them all in this podcast. Isaac, go on.
24, because one's gone already.
Oh, the Swansea Aberystwyth game's gone, hasn't it? Oh no. Anyway,
anyways,
where was I? Isaac will be posting his BUCS weekend kickoff interview podcast this weekend on Friday afternoon. And you had go on.
They do share a field.
They do share a field.
They do share a field. So it's both teams have got home field advantage.
Awesome. The bagpipes will be there regardless. Awesome. Very good. Very good. And Nathan's in Bristol for SGS versus Exeter. So there's some interesting fixtures across this weekend for sure. Yes, Isaac's video. Isaac's video will be posted on Friday. Who have you got this week joining you on the
Oscar,
pod?
my brother.
Who's that?
Weird. Yeah. It's my blood relative. But no, honestly, if anyone listening out there wants to jump on the pod, have a chat about BUCS, the games coming up themselves, anything, yeah, either DM Inside Brickball or DM me personally or whatever, and we'll look at getting you on. We've got a couple lined up. We've got one potentially lined up with the Winchester Silverbacks, talk about how they're getting back into BUCS, and also one with the head coach from Hull in a couple of weeks when it gets into the postseason. But definitely, if anyone wants to jump on, chat about football with me for about half an hour, the invite's always there.
Yeah, absolutely. A great concept that you're going to bring, which is just talk about football, preview this weekend, and instead of writing it down, you're going to talk about it, which is just great, isn't it? So head on over to our YouTube channels. You can find it on our podcast platforms as well, and head over and give that a listen and get involved in the conversation as well. So we will not go through every single fixture. Let's pick out our favourite, shall we? Or at least talk about a couple. We have the Prem National back this week, so let's talk about that. We've got Loughborough travelling to Gold, and we've got Durham travelling to Leeds Beckett. I'm just not sure whether I can get excited about these two games, these two fixtures. Anybody gonna tell me I'm wrong?
Just a note on the Nottingham one. It's probably the most exciting out of the two. But know that is their beef game that they normally have each year, dedicated to Coach Beef, who was their online coach, who died a few years ago now. So they've got their double header, which we'll talk about on the next slide. But that game looks like the most interesting out of the two, really. Loughborough do look like a good team sometimes, but not that often enough to prove a fight. But yeah, that's probably it, isn't it, really, in the Prem National? Yeah,
it was 29-0 at Loughborough at the beginning of the season. So, it's not close, but it's closer than most, I suppose. And then we've obviously got Leeds Beckett. Maybe Leeds Beckett and Loughborough have been able to get something together in the last couple of months since they were last on the field. Or was it Leeds Beckett were last played 7th of December? It's nearly 2 months ago. And Loughborough last played 30th of November. That's either going to be rusty or a good thing, isn't it? It's going to be one or the other.
I mean, I've heard the rumour that there's a potential that a couple of Americans might be back for Leeds Beckett, some of their scholars that left, or rumoured to have left, and they're apparently now coming back, which who knows. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, because both of the Golden Durham Saints have got, aspirations of division champs, that number one seed, hosting the playoff game, etc. That's all really important, isn't it? A victory for Durham will tie up their playoff spot, so that'll be, if they haven't already. I'm just going to remind myself, no, they're already in, so shut up, Andy. Let's have a little look at the rest of the Prem then. What's your favourite one out of this lot, Stuart?
Oddly, maybe Northumbria. Sorry, no, I'm looking at something completely different. I don't know. Again, it's hard to sort of potentially get excited by these. I think a lot of them will go to form, and a lot of teams will be looking to, rubber stamp and completely seal playoff football, and potentially then look to rotate through players. So I think if you're like a second string or a rookie this season, these are the games that you're really badgering your coach and knocking on your coach's door, metaphorically saying, I want some reps in these games. And again, I think we'll sort of be sat here next week going, yeah, it's gone to form. And if anybody shocks us, then I'll eat my hat and be really impressed.
I'd be delighted. What about you, Isaac?
I think the Mustangs might cause an upset. Well, not an upset, but I think the Mustangs could prove something here against Warwick and kind of shake up that division a little bit. I don't think it changed the standings as much, but it definitely would make everything a lot more interesting than going for the rest of the season and it just being, the Warwick and NTU. That's my gut feeling, anyways. The NTU Leeds games are sewn up in it, really.
It was 7-24 to Warwick. So Warwick won 24 away from home. last time around against Northumbria. So they've got a ways to go to get that head-to-head and get that second place, haven't they? And you know, a victory there will obviously go a long way to shoring up their seed. That's what they're playing for now. Northumbria, isn't it? It's that second seed, and Warwick obviously got something to try and catch up with NTU as well, because then that sets up an amazing showdown at the end of the year. Towards the end, is that coming back up again, or have they already tied that up? No, they've already tied it up, haven't they? They've already got the head-to-head there. So, you know, I think what we've got up in the north for sure is second and third seed battles, and then we're waiting to see what comes out of Leeds versus Newcastle for the relegation. And in the south, obviously Portsmouth have got to try and keep Exeter away from them. They can't. None of them can sleep on both these games. You know, they can't leave it to the last game where Exeter are obviously hosting Portsmouth, but maybe they can both use these games as momentum to try and take into that game, because as you say, 22 against Brunel will bring some confidence to Exeter, I'm sure. Then Brunel and SGS have got a point to prove as well, haven't they? And SGS who've probably been able to train as well and get a load of work done. I'm sure they're not going to be any pushovers for Exeter either, are they? Portsmouth, yeah. So if Portsmouth get something, they can save themselves. But I feel as if it's all going to crescendo towards that Exeter Portsmouth game at the end of the season, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's have a look at Tier 1, the North. Isaac, what do you reckon?
I mean, why have we put the Aberdeen fixture on there?
Because it's happening at the moment.
Technically, it's still happening.
I mean, wasn't there begging for players earlier on today? But yeah, I have many questions for that program. They told me to ask questions. I have many. I'm
just checking to see if it's still there.
Yeah, you and me alike.
It'd be incredible. I mean, I hope they do play this weekend. It'd be nice if they do.
It is.
Have football back in Aberdeen. Yeah, I think that'd be nice, but we'll have to wait and see. I think that's a game that potentially they could win against Harry Watt as well. So who knows what could happen in that one? I don't know. Liverpool MMU screams to me. I think it might be a close game, but it's definitely one that Liverpool need to win. To save themselves some relegation. Having that weird relegation in the north where it's 3 teams from 2 divisions, they need to win this one. And that's probably the one that's screaming out to me the most interesting one right now, if I'm honest.
Well, it was a beautiful 7-0 victory to Man Met first time around against Liverpool. So, you know, more of the same, please. Let's make it, I don't know, 4-2. Why not do that this time?
All safeties. Love that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and as you say, Liverpool are going to want to keep it in their own hands, aren't they? They're going to want to have control of their own destiny, really. And a victory here would mean that, you know, if they can win by 7 points or more, then they've got a chance of finishing third rather than being in a relegation battle. And to the point as well, a victory for Liverpool does relegate Edge Hill. So it'd be very interesting to see how that comes out, because Edge Hill would be struggling at that point. And then obviously we'll see how Sheffield Hallam bounce back from that loss at the weekend.
Bless them.
I think so.
They're not mathematically down.
No,
but definitely.
Well, their biggest game is not this week. It's next week. They travel to Liverpool, right?
But if Liverpool win this week, do you know what I mean?
It's going to be really
all over, isn't it?
They're going to have to get 2 victories out of traveling to Lancashire hosting Lancashire this weekend and then traveling to Man Met at the end of the year. So it'll be the comeback of all comebacks if they're able to do it.
It's the same for Leicester in that Hallam game that you were just about to talk about as well. I think if Hallam beat Leicester like they did in week 2 of the season, I'm pretty sure that's curtains for Leicester as well, and they drop down to tier 2.
That's correct, because Derby have obviously got that 3 points because they managed to get that tie against Sheffield, and obviously a victory over Leicester. So yeah, they will be mathematically down should they lose this weekend. And obviously we've then got that the implications of who's going to be the next worst to go down out of those two divisions. So obviously can't forget that in tier 1 North either, can you? Because Derby is sitting there in 4th and Liverpool are sitting there in 4th in those divisions. So a victory over Man Met this week will be massive there, because then Derby have got to find a point from somewhere to finish the season, and I doubt it's going to be travelling to Nottingham Green this week, but then that makes away to Leicester next week really important, and Sheffield Hallam at home the week after that, massive. So a really interesting end to the bottom as well as the top of these tiers, because we've obviously got battles all over. Let's have a look at the South very briefly. Stuart, take us through.
Hertfordshire, they will be looking to get back at it and sort of really looking to sort of cement themselves at the top of that division. I know they're playing the other Oxford University, who I'm sure BUCS will be hoping do them a favour and upset the apple cart. Can I see it happen? Can I see it happening? Probably not. But for me, the most important one is that very top fixture, Bath Killer Bees versus Bristol, because that could really put the cat amongst the pigeons in terms of Bournemouth, who will be watching from their weekend off, hoping that things don't go against them and Bournemouth end up getting in that 6 to 8, 6, 7, 8 bracket. Sorry, the 7, 8, 9 bracket. Yeah, cheers, Isaac. The 7, 8, 9 bracket. Didn't purposely do that, I promise. The 7, 8, 9 bracket, and either get a low seed and have to travel, or end up being the 9th seed and missing out in playoff football completely. Which, can you imagine an unbeaten team missing out on the playoffs?
You're dead right. We're just not taking it seriously at all.
I know. That's why I kept talking till you guys had composed yourself.
You're dead right, because we have documented it on this podcast that there is a way in which Bath can win the division, and we are here for it because it'll be total chaos. Yes, Bath, this is your final, effectively. This is one of the biggest games of your season. Can you turn around a 5-point deficit to get a head-to-head over Bristol? In which case, if you win out, you could top your division, which is just a thing of beauty when you are 5 games in, sitting with 4 points. That's what we want to see, total chaos. But nonetheless, I'd be very happy to see Bristol win the division as well. So please don't take me out of context. But no, absolutely, big game this weekend, that game. And it just feels like you've then got one of the next biggest games are those in the southeast, aren't they? I feel as if the Southern will probably take care of itself, probably too harsh to say, but then you've obviously got KCL Brighton, big top of the division clash, and then obviously Kingston took it to KCL this weekend, and it was obviously a very, very, very close game. But Kingston, 2 defensive teams, we know Kent can score, but it was once. So we'll see if it happens again. But no, that'll be really interesting to see how that pans out as well, because there'll be some playoffs decided, I'm sure, this weekend based on those results. Tier 2 to finish off.
Really busy weekend.
Isaac.
Really busy weekend, this one, isn't it?
Yeah, Isaac. There's going to be games in the northeast.
Just not the team. Not the team from BD.
They're no longer a myth.
I don't know. York play on grass, don't they?
They do, and it's not nice either. It's horrendous.
It's been a bit grim round the country, hasn't it?
So let me start you off with a prediction, Isaac. Are we going to get 2 games in the northeast this weekend?
We're definitely going to get 1.
That's not what I asked. Okay, fine.
I think, I'm known for being a weatherman. I believe that we will see 2 games.
Nice. That'll be a first for this year.
I think that there'll be potentially both home wins.
Well, there's a surprise. You picking against YSJ.
I mean, I'm just going
There's
purely
a
off
surprise.
stats. At this point, I'm going purely off stats, and the stats don't like it. You know what I mean? There's no other reason. And also in the Midlands, I pray that Cambridge bring the bagpipes. Take the bagpipes on the road. Give the bagpipes their own TikTok or Instagram channel. I'll be their biggest fan. But yeah.
Can we not talk about one of the biggest games in the Northwest as well? Like Lancaster, John Moores Fury. At the beginning of the season, that's one you would have circled. You'd have gone, that's going to be the biggest game of this division. And at the moment, it's shaping up to be.
Yeah.
You're not that enthused?
It's going. I don't know. I'm just the Northeast back, and that's kind of taking all my energy from me. But no, I get it. I think that game again is going to be great. LGMU's only played once though, so was that just a one-time thing, like kind of like Salford was at the start of their season, or can they keep going and replicate this? And it's really important in this division because in Tier 2 you have to win the division to go up. It's not like in Tier 1 or in the Prem North or South. You could, realistically, Newcastle could finish fourth and still get promoted. Highly unlikely, but it could happen. Whereas here, you look at LGMU and they need to win this game. Lancaster need to win this game if they want to go up to the next level. So it adds a little bit more spice to it, doesn't it, really, in Tier 2?
Yeah, 100%. And two coaching staffs that will know each other very well. There'll be a lot of crossover in players at the summer seasons as well. I'm sure there's some, where Lancashire and Manchester and Merseyside and Chester sort of crossovers there as well, which always adds to the spice, doesn't it? And then a little bit further south, Stuart, we've obviously got Bath Spa versus Worcester and Solent versus Sussex. Swansea Aberystwyth's not happening. What's your thoughts on those two?
Can Bath Spa go back to back? I would love to know if they've ever done back to back wins. They won obviously the last game before Christmas. Can they beat the Royals in the first game after Christmas and seal back-to-back wins? That'll be phenomenal. And then Solent, Sussex. Although Sussex are kind of third and Solent are fifth, sort of slightly different ends of the table, there's only one win between them, as in Sussex have only won one and Solent haven't won one. There's only 2 points in it. So if Solent win that, it makes that seeding 7 to 9 seeding again interesting in terms of Solent jumping up that division potentially into third, maybe depending on head to head. They may well just climb one position, but yeah, that game could be close and could be interesting and fun.
Awesome. Yeah, great stuff. And I just had a quick look, see what their score was last year. It was 22-0 to Worcester. So the stats are not in their favour, but hey, it's at home this time. It was Worcester at home last year. Stuart, do you want to were there any victims in the last man standing this weekend?
Nope. We had a full slate of players through. We almost had a full slate of players picking Manchester Tyrants as well. 3 of the 5 went with Tyrants against Edge Hill. Sam Stoddart was different and went with Lancashire. He obviously used a dead cert pick there. And Sam Johnson went with KCL Regents. So he was close, to be fair. He nearly he obviously didn't know what the conditions were going to be like. He should do living in the south, but he just about got himself through. So we've still got 5 people in, and you guys will get your chance to vote on Friday.
Nice. Very good. Anything before we get out here?
Watch the show on Friday.
Yeah.
Really interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely. You've already recorded it, haven't you? And we'll release that on Friday. So definitely go ahead to our YouTube channels and check out the BUCS weekend kickoff. And also the interesting insight that you got from your brother, who is obviously part of the Nottingham programme, Green and Gold, isn't he? So absolutely join that. Anything else? Don't think so. 1 hour, 3 minutes, probably enough. What do you reckon?
Yeah, all good. Did you speak about the announcement of the Indoor Football League?
Nope.
No.
We'll talk about that another time, maybe. When we see a game.
When it's a little bit more confirmed and the graphics look a bit prettier, we might cover it.
Yeah. They didn't pass it. Yeah. There's plenty to talk about with that, Isaac. I feel as if that might be a different, a separate podcast altogether.
It'd be like the alignments talk all over again. I don't think we're set up for that right now.
Not at 1 hour 4 minutes anyway. Right.
Why don't we just
Brilliant.
talk about the ELF and the AFLE and all the other European leagues while we're at it as well?
I'm going to start one soon.
Yeah.
Have a European League brainchild.
Absolutely.
Good luck.
Get some hedge fund manager to pump it in. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Awesome.
Invest in the Baltic League.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Right. Thanks, guys, for joining me once again. Thank you for everyone who joined us in the chat. There was plenty of conversation and comment going on today. Thank you for those who joined us live. And for those who listen when it drops on a Thursday or Friday. We will be back again next week. Might be a different day or without me, because I am away next week. But controversial, but we'll see. Nonetheless, we will be back no matter what. Check out Isaac's video for sure on the YouTube channel, and we'll be back again next week. Take care, everybody, and we'll catch you again soon.